This video is about the archetype of Scorpio, whether it's your sun, your moon, or your ascendant, or you can look at it from having 3 or more planets in Scorpio. This video is for you. Welcome to Starwell Astrology. My name is Shari, and I'm a Western tropical astrologer. I specialize in shadow work. If you enjoy astrology and looking at it through the lens of shadow work, as well as esotericism and astrotheology, then don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video. I also offer natal chart readings, and I do offer one-on-one shadow work coaching. If you're interested, my information can be found below this video. Now, when I describe the attributes of Scorpio, please keep in mind that we are never one thing in our natal chart. We are multifaceted beings, so the entire natal chart must be considered. So in this video, I'm just isolating the Scorpio archetype to describe its core qualities. So Scorpio is the 8th sign in the zodiac, and it's a fixed water sign ruled by Pluto. Its key phrase is I desire. Pluto has the constant desire to transform. They are a fixed water sign, and all the water energy in astrology is associated to intuition. And Scorpio are naturally intuitive. All water signs are intuitive, but in different ways, but also our water is attributed to our emotions. So Scorpios have a very strong emotional sensitivity, and that makes them very suspicious, but it allows them to sense the undercurrents in any situation. Scorpio intuitively can sense unfavorable energies. And once they sense this, they're not likely to ever change their mind or opinion about the situation or the person that they're dealing with. So they actually trust their intuition without even questioning it. Scorpios really have an intense desire to transform at all levels, and this drives their need to constantly deal with intense situations and extremes. Because of this, some Scorpios are known for being overdramatic. And although most will not like to hear that they're very dramatic, but this really comes from an intense emotional undercurrent in their own personality. And so they experience things very intensely, and then they might become overly expressive about how they feel. And this comes from always feeling betrayed or somehow suspicious, and this makes them jealous. So they really have intense sensitivities to this reality and how they experience it. Especially Scorpio moons would feel this way because Scorpio is already an emotional sign, and the moon is what makes you feel safe and protective. This can especially display itself in Scorpio moons. Sun, ascendant, or all points, including the ascendant, as well as the sun, do fall under the influence of this Scorpio energy. Scorpios fear being deceived. And because of this unconscious feeling of others betraying them and deceiving them, they automatically attract experiences that will allow them to portray the internal story that they are holding on to unconsciously in themselves. So they don't trust easily. And if they don't trust you, and if you try to do something that they don't like, they will sting you, meaning they will hurt you to protect themselves. The glyph of Scorpio looks like a sting, and they will readily defend themselves with this sting. They have no problem looking at the dark side of things, and they are okay with dark mysteries and taboo topics. And yet, oddly, they're very sensitive. But this sensitivity is not a quality that they will openly embrace. As a matter of fact, they don't really want others to know that they are also very, very intuitively sensitive. So until they become mature and have become more conscious and aware of this protectiveness that they sense inside of themselves, they will deny their emotional sensitivities and instead blame others and other experiences for what they're feeling. But if they work with themselves, they can get access to this realization. So instead of taking accountability for themselves in the experience, they tend to project this onto others. And also, they will show others that they have this tough exterior, like a protective shell that makes them seem cold and unemotional. But instead, they're really very emotionally sensitive, but they don't want others to see this in themselves. The core trait of Scorpio is related to being overly suspicious and protective. They're highly untrusting and skeptical of others. In most cases, if not all, they need to do their own evaluations, their own research, their own investigations. They need to analyze things for themselves before accepting or rejecting any information. But the emotional sensitivities that they want to deny is exactly what allows them to feel so deeply. They naturally stay in tune with their own deep and penetrating feelings to sense things intuitively, but at the same time, they don't really want others to detect this about them. Scorpios emanate powerful and magnetic energy and will attract others through their own magnetic presence. They exude power that can bring them into positions of leadership, but this power must be managed carefully. They're all around intense people because their emotional desires, behaviors, and their thought processes are very deep and powerful and piercing. This can be uncomfortable for most people to handle. They have a tendency towards vengefulness and jealousy and obsessions. Scorpios can be cold and they can cut you off without hesitation. Scorpios can be obsessive and relentless, and they are also very capable of holding a grudge forever. They thrive on extremes. The need for intensity in their daily experiences is really an unconscious desire to feel alive and engaged with life. And so they will attract intense situations to themselves with a hidden intention for transformation. They're a very complex sign and they can be intentionally manipulative. In other words, they will consciously seek revenge and they will strike out at you at precisely the right time. They need to possess and control the things they desire. They can stay fixed and focused on their passionate desires. And this is a huge benefit because they can create from this potential and because they have great concentration. And when you combine this ability with their own perceptiveness, they can really get to the bottom line of any situation or find solutions that most are not necessarily conscious of because they are able to go beneath the surface to get the answers they need. So they can express their intense desires through drama, crisis, sex, revenge, abuse, and even violence. And they have unconscious fear of loss that they're holding on to because on a psychological level, they have this desire to possess things. And their possessions can come in the form of secrets, money, partners, whatever they think is a resource. So, in a relationship where they think that their partner is an actual resource, they want to hold on to that partner and merge with them. And they can become very, very possessive when they actually let their guards down enough to fall in love. But they're always like on alert, so they naturally anticipate threats because they are instinctively aware of being on the defensive side. So they have this quick defense mechanism in place where they're ready to attack. They will strike out at any moment that they feel unsafe. And because of this, Scorpios are not a light, easy, breezy energy. They really don't relax. Scorpios' emotional wounds are deeper than most because they have a very long memory combined with feeling things very deeply, as well as they're fixed energy. So they tend to fixate on what they're feeling and they will cling to their own emotional wounds forevermore. But at the same time, This can be a resource if they understand how to become conscious of what they're holding on to protectively. And instead of using it in a way that they need to defend themselves from being hurt, they understand that it is the gateway to their own healing. So, although they hold on to their wounds tightly as a defense mechanism because they fear being hurt again, it really becomes a reoccurring theme in their lives until they heal. It is very likely they will keep attracting more and more intense situations that are usually extreme situations to activate these emotional wounds. Scorpios operate based on what they intuitively sense and feel about themselves rather than through a dialogue. So most of the information they gather about you will not come from conversations, but more from what they intuitively sense about you. And almost always they will decide not to trust because they're very protective and very private. They are the sign of transformation through healing, and Scorpio is a sign of transformation and rebirth. So they are the most capable sign of all for profound transformations when they decide to heal. And this is what makes them great healers because they can relate to the emotional wounds of others. They innately hold strong natural healing powers for careers in science, psychology, medicine, and other investigative professions. Scorpios are deep thinkers with an analytical mind, and they have penetrating thoughts and are always psychoanalyzing and preparing for the next impending crisis. They have an exceptional ability to research, investigate, dig up not just skeletons, but also hidden treasures at the root of any issue. But although, like I said, they project this tough exterior, their emotions are quite tender and they love to bond through intimacy with a pure desire to feed their deepest passions. They also have strong sexual energy. So they have raw sexual desires that can express itself through casual sex, therefore, easily perverted into obsessions such as sexual addictions through desire to dominate and control others. However, at their core, there is a pure desire for a sexual union, a desire to merge in union with another through deep, intimate bonding. But this gets really complicated because they have a strong fear around loss. So they don't trust easily, while they also desire having that deep, intimate bonding. So, yeah, this is a very complex side. Scorpio's desires can express itself in the need to dominate and possess others they love, as well as their money and their possessions. Because they don't relax easily, they live in a constant state of urgency and angst and are always ready to brace for the next calamity. Scorpio is not a light and relaxed energy, and they are very focused, investigative, and therefore always penetrating the minds of others. Their deepest desire is for transformation, as I've said many times, on all levels, physically, mentally, emotionally. They're here to transform. They are the sign of rebirth. So they do have the ability to overcome challenges and reinvent themselves through any crisis. Scorpios and shadow work. Their overprotectiveness, like I've said, really stems from unresolved emotional wounds. They do have long memories where they are fixated on their own feelings. And when it becomes an unconscious emotional wound, then they unconsciously recreate experiences based on their own internal state. So until they find ways to start to acknowledge this part of themselves as they're seeing it being expressed in their experiences, they're until then they're not able to see this in themselves. It becomes more a blame story. So if they become honest and they're ready, really ready to do shadow work at its deepest level, then they can have access to Scorpio's energetic signature, which is naturally in their natal chart. If you have any placement in Scorpio, you naturally have access to this scorpionic, deep, intense, transformative energy. So Scorpio is able to access the deepest parts of themselves through their own intuition, and they can excavate and explore themselves like no other. But there must be a readiness for this. Otherwise, they will stay closed in the state of protecting themselves instead of empowering themselves through their own natural gifts of being able to transform. The first step is to take accountability for themselves by acknowledging their wounded self and turning all the attention inwards for self-exploration rather than projecting them emotional sensitivities onto others through blame, so that they're not stuck in recreating similar drama that stems from painful old memories. The threat they feel gets projected onto others because they feel they need to protect themselves. And when they decide, though, to self-investigate, explore their own internal state of mind objectively, they can begin to confront the internal conflicts and face their own emotional wounds. Then they can begin to allow themselves to feel their own pain instead of projecting it onto others. Instead of focusing on getting back at others who they believe have hurt them, they can turn the attention inwards and begin to heal themselves. They can alchemically heal themselves once they make the conscious choice to do so. But this is not easy for Scorpios to do because they're very sensitive, but they have to get through the sensitivities that they're feeling and start to really assimilate to the energies that are within them instead of externalizing it. Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, and Pluto rules the soul. So does the sun, but Pluto is the gateway. The sun is your authentic self. Pluto is the gateway to the authentic self. It guards the gates to the higher dimensions. So unless you work with Pluto, you cannot get to the higher dimensions within yourself that is authentically aligned in your sun sign. So you can see my previous videos I've made on Pluto, and this will describe more of its archetype. So those with strong Pluto influences have come into the world with a potential for healing themselves. Once they decide to work on themselves, especially through the methods of shadow work, they are very capable of healing and accessing their own inner alchemy. They are naturally introspective and can look within at their own darkness, and they have the unique ability to plunge deep into the secret parts of themselves to examine their own psyche. They can get access to their own inner alchemy and transform through rebirth into their true and authentic self. Astrological insights that comes from Scorpio on the ascendant. So Scorpio house rulerships can reveal intriguing patterns. With Sagittarius ruling their second house, they can be pretty optimistic about their money. They have a magnetic draw to money, and they can do this in an optimistic way based on Sagittarius on their second house. So they're usually good at having some type of good resource or income because they naturally attract this to themselves. With the third house cusp being ruled by Capricorn, the third house is your communication style. And Capricorn is a more restricted, closed energy. So this represents that the Scorpio on the ascendant will typically have a very closed communication style that has a lot of boundaries. So they're more logical and focused in their way of thinking. And they don't care for the small talk. And also they're very selective about who they're willing to share their time with and communicate with casually. The seventh house cusp is ruled by Taurus, and this confirms the possessiveness with their partners because Taurus is also a fixed sign. And the key phrase for Taurus is I have. And when combined with Scorpio's core traits as a fixed sign, also with the phrase I desire, they have an intense and urgent desire to hold on to what they possess. And the seventh house rules your partnership. So they will be quite possessive towards their partners. They hold on firmly to those they love, and Scorpios can be possessive, obsessive, and even jealous in their relationships. And they believe they need to manipulate and control those they love in order to protect themselves from being hurt. So even when a relationship is not working out, they are likely to stay because they are fixed. And they're also pretty loyal when it comes to relationships, but they're like a dog with a bone that won't let go. The sign Gemini rules their eighth house, and Gemini is the ideas we have and how we communicate. So this makes Scorpios able to function well in crisis and intense situations because they can communicate quickly and analytically and also incorporate new ideas to act on in urgent situations. They make great healers, doctors, and psychiatrists because they can intuitively communicate without words and get access to what might be hidden to help others to heal. So, in astrotheology and esoteric mysticism, Judas in the Bible story represents the archetype of Scorpio. And Judas kissed Jesus at the Last Supper. In astrotheology, this represents Scorpio's sting of death, meaning that Jesus was marked for death. So this is the kiss of death where he deceived Jesus for 30 pieces of gold. Each sign has 30 decans. In astrotheology, the allegorical meaning of the Bible story of Jesus, the sun, represents the sun in the sky, the sun, and its movement on the ecliptic or the sine wave through the sign of Scorpio, which happens to be the middle of fall, the middle of the fall season, just before winter. So the sun is ready to descend to its death, which is the lowest point in the sky, where the sun is said to die for 3 days on December 22nd, before the winter solstice on December 25th, when Jesus, the Son of God, is born, but also the sun in the sky is reborn on Christmas Day. So Scorpio represents the last season that the sun moves through before it dies and is reborn at the winter solstice. So thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, leave a comment if you enjoyed this content. It does help my channel to grow. And also, I offer natal chart readings and shadow work one-on-one sessions. My information is below. Thank you and goodbye.